Julie Beadle-Brown will be presenting to you and moderating the next panel. Julie Beadle-Brown joined us on the CCLN team from the Tizard Center at the University of Kent in the UK. We dragged her over. With over 30 years' experience of working in the field of intellectual and developmental disabilities internationally, Julie has worked with children and adults, their families, direct support professionals, service providers, local and national government, and international umbrella organizations. Her work has always had a particular focus on people to live good lives in the community through high-quality services and supports. She is passionate about ensuring everyone has the opportunity to live as an active and valued citizen in their community, irrespective of how much support they need. She's one of the original authors of the Person-Centered Active Support training materials and has trained on this and on autism and neurodiversity in many countries. She led the development of distance learning at the Tizard Center and has designed and created the content for teaching and training programs at all levels. She's worked collaboratively and internationally in her research, including several multinational projects conducted for the European Commission. She is so excited to be part of the CCLN Pave Service Outcomes Project and the upcoming DSP University team. So I welcome Julie to the podium and invite your panelists to come up.
I think they can probably say, well, we'll invite them up after.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
I'm gonna turn it over to you, Julie.
Okay. It is lovely to be here. Last year we had our first opportunity to talk to you about the Pave project. Some of you, I know, were here last year. And so today we are going to bring you up to date with where we're up to and where we're going, but we're also going to share a little bit about the links between Pave and the new kind of DSP university work that we'll be doing. So a brief just overview. I'm going to just give a quick reminder about what Pave is for those who are not familiar, and a little bit of a overview of our progress to date. And then a brief introduction to DSP University and to those opportunities for, as we say, for intersection to improve the experiences of DSPs and the quality of services more generally. And I'm going to talk and do this for about 30 minutes, and then we've got a panel that I'll introduce at the end, who are going to come up and share some of their perspectives on the importance, if you like, of training and support for DSPs and how that links to the quality of services and how we're going to do that. So just a reminder, what does Pave stand for? So it's the Pave Service Outcomes Project. So it's about looking at the outcomes of people who are using, receiving services. The P is for person-centered, about putting the person at the middle, at the center of everything that goes on around them in their lives, in their homes, in their community. A is for advocacy. And helping people to have a voice, but also helping people to be able to act and to have good things happen in their lives. V is for vision and having a shared vision of what we want the system and services to look like for people. And the E is for education and how we are going to bring everything together to try and implement change in services for individuals with developmental disabilities. So you can see that right from the beginning, education, of which training is an important part, not by any means the only part, but an important element, was always part of the vision of the Pave project and the Pave system. So the Pave Service Outcomes framework that we've been using is based on the idea of quality of life. I talked a lot about that last year and about the outcomes and about the way that it works. But just to remind us that it's really kind of a set of domains and dimensions that can be very helpful in thinking about individuals' lives, but also thinking about the services that we provide and the outcomes that we are achieving. We talk about how we're thinking not just in the framework about the quality of life of the people who are receiving services, people with developmental disabilities, but we're also thinking about outcomes for families and outcomes for the people who provide support for the DSPs and other staff, supervisors, etc. within services, because all three of these things are inevitably connected. And I don't know if John Raphael is still here today, or whether he had to leave yesterday. He had a very long and busy day yesterday with workshops, and I know that many of you were in those workshops. But John used this slide yesterday in his general session about quality, and the idea that quality is defined at the point of interaction between the staff member and the individual with disability. And he talked a lot about how the role of the direct support professional is key when we want to provide quality services. Okay, and of course that is absolutely true, and that's what we also know from nearly 50 years of research. Yeah, that actually that's the key thing, and that it's the way that staff provide support, the how they do it, not just the type of service or the amount of time they provide, but how they work with somebody at the point at which they are giving support. Yeah? And the research has shown that when we work in a particular way, in a way that is facilitative, enabling, the technology exhibition is called Enabling Technology. Yeah? But enabling is also about the support that's provided. Yeah? Enabling people to have their best lives. Okay? Empowering, helping people to have control over their own lives, rather than doing for, controlling, only caring. There's a lot of care is needed, but actually we go beyond just caring for and meeting people's physical needs to thinking about quality of life more generally. But one of the things that we know is that training, although very important, it's not enough on its own. You can train people until you and them are blue in the face, but it won't necessarily get them to do it in real life. We have to think about the wider context as well in which people work, their motivation. John yesterday used the word, said about how important the values of staff are, for example. We've been talking this morning about issues like the recognition through appropriate and decent pay. You know, those are all part of a motivational structure. But so is what you think your manager wants you to do. What happens when you do good things versus when you don't do something that's, good practice? Does anybody notice? Who tells you you're doing a good job? Who helps you if you're struggling to support somebody that you're working with? All of those things we know are really important. And so we have to make sure that the structures and processes within which people work are in line and support the values we want staff to have and the practices we want staff to use. And those practices then are what relate to the outcomes that people experience. So when we've been thinking about Pave, we haven't just been thinking about outcomes. They are the primary thing, but you cannot focus just on outcomes if you want to improve things. Because how do you know why things are not the way you want them to be? If you only look at outcomes, you can only say, well, the outcomes are good or bad. Yeah, we have to look at some of the other things that are going on in order to really understand quality. and to understand what we need to do to improve quality. And that takes us to what the Pave service outcome system is trying to be, okay? And it's a system that is primarily about improving the quality of services and the outcomes experienced by people with developmental disabilities and hopefully their family and those who support them in a paid capacity or in any capacity. An essential part of that is gathering accurate, robust, and up-to-date data, information. But data on its own is not enough to improve quality. There are a very small number of organizations and people in the world where I have been able to show them data about what the services are like. You know, we've collected data, we've got information from people, and they can go, oh, okay, I know how to fix that. But quite often they need help. They need to go, well, what does it mean? What do I have to do to make this difference? So the Pave service outcome system is comprised of three kind of key elements. A software system that provides helpful tools, supports planning, and monitors outcomes in a person-centered way and at an individual level. It starts with people who are receiving services as the main if you like, people who are providing information about their lives. Okay. Now, of course, some people will need a lot of support to be able to do that. Some people may need somebody else to do the bulk of it. Yeah, we have to take that into account as we design it and as we're developing it. The second element is a new training program and training management system for people themselves, for direct support professionals, for families, and for those responsible for leading, providing, coordinating, and approving funding services. If we only target information and training and resources at one level, it's unlikely that it will make change happen. And then thirdly, the system will include an element that is about evaluating the quality, accuracy, and reliability of the data that is gathered from the software system. In other words, we plan to have people who will be trained as evaluators who will go out and visit, talk to people, observe, find out what people's lived experiences are, and ensure that people who may not be able to fill in things and answer survey, who are reliant on other people to do it, that we really capture something of their actual lived experience, not just somebody else's report of it. Okay. So this Pave system is unique in a number of ways in terms of a way of thinking about looking at monitoring quality and thinking about quality. First of all, it is designed to be person-centered and person-led. It's about putting the person served in the driving seat. It's outcomes-focused, although, as I said a minute ago, not limited to only outcomes. It looks at the impact of services on the quality of people's lives and whether they are achieving what they want to be achieving. It's holistic. The aim is that it's their person-centered plan for the whole of their lives, not just about one of the services, because some people might be receiving 3 or 4 services. Yeah, but it's about putting people, and it's them that's driving that and leading it with support. It's evidence-based. It's based on international research and implementation practice. The idea is that we're collecting real-time data that will be updated every quarter. Yeah. It has to be, if people are going to complete it or use it, it has to be useful to them. So that's why it's designed to improve service quality, not just measure, because otherwise we won't have anybody wanting to use it. Trying to make it as inclusive as possible, information provided in a way that is accessible to as many people as possible. Visits ensure that the lived experience of those with higher support needs are captured. Validated, information collected in different ways from different sources, from different people, including visits, and also substantial work with Excel spreadsheets and data and statistics, actually working with statistical, what we call validation. Most ways that are used currently to measure quality do not allow measurement over time really well, really reliably, because they're often based on a sample. That means that it's not the same people at each time, so we don't get a feel for how individuals' lives change and what happens over time for them. And the aim is that the Pave, because it's based on the individuals and it's collecting data from individuals, it will be able to do that. And because it'll be independently administered, we hope that that might be a first step to building trust and increased willingness to use in areas and with groups that have traditionally found it very hard to trust anything that is collecting data at any sort of systematic or systems level. Don't expect you to read this, but this is just a map of the project in boxes and lines. Yeah? And the point is that we've moved forward, thank goodness, from the starting point to we're in the middle of the first block, which is really about all of the developments of the measures, the methodologies, the development of the software, and so we're in full swing, if you like, of working on that. And the project goes on, is funded until the spring of 2027. And by that point, we hope to have tried the process out, worked with 4 regional centres, got lots of data and feedback from people, and also to have developed a plan for wider implementation and scalability within California. One of the tasks we've been doing, and some of you have been involved in that already, but has been developing operational definitions of the initial 4 service types that Pave will focus on. It's not that it's only going to be able to ever work with these 4 service types, but you have to start somewhere. If you're going to be able to tailor elements and think about what different service types might look like. And so those operational definitions are almost finished. They've been through a thorough process in terms of development. They've already been reviewed, and we've had feedback from regional centres, and the next stage is that we are about to launch them out for further, for wider consultation. And so you will be getting information about them being on the website, and about what we call like town halls, where you can come and give feedback, and different ways that you can let us know what you think about our operational definitions. Those operational definitions are not that they're going to be set in stone forever. What we need to get to a point where we can start to use them as a way of thinking about what data we collect. We've been thinking and starting our work on developing the measures of quality, and we have talked to our stakeholder group. We've been working, and then at the minute we are just about to send a first draft of key measures around to our stakeholder group, so that the measures, the things that we might collect and we might look at for quality measurement and outcomes measurement. Okay, and then there's a lot more process after that in terms of testing them and gathering information about them. And then we have been also starting the process of preparing the software system for initial testing and use. And we have now got our fully executed contract. The contract has been signed with Therap, who are one of our vendors here. And we've had our kickoff meeting and lots of meetings where essentially I am being trained to start to configure the Therap system as a way of testing the measures and testing the things that we want to do, and working out what else is going to be needed to bring the system into reality for that. So there's a lot of things in process. And then Finally, I wanted to say just a little bit about Pave training, because obviously that's going to link substantially to our ideas around DSP University as well. And I'll come to the curriculum element in a second, but as I mentioned before, the audiences, if you like, the people that the training might be developed for and like available to would be essentially individuals themselves with developmental disabilities, families, direct support professionals, obviously, frontline managers, team leaders, supervisors level, senior managers of service providers, case managers, service coordinators. There's obviously going to need to be training for our quality and outcomes evaluators, the people who are going to do the visits. And then also for trainers and coaches, because much as I would love to spend the next 10 years going around services in California training, that's really not realistic. So we have to create a system of trainers and coaches who will be able to take the training and make sure that is being delivered in services and being used in the right way. There obviously will be multiple modes of delivery and competency-based assessment. And one of the things that we've worked into our budget, and it's a huge part of our training budget, is that organizations will, of course, be paid to release staff and coaches and anybody else to take part in any of the elements of the training when they participate. The training and process will focus on three kind of core elements at systems level. We have training that's about creating that supportive motivational context. Training that's about creating local expertise, coaches and trainers and organizations. And then training that's for direct support professionals and team leaders on supporting for kind of good quality of life outcomes. And then, as I said, in addition, there will be training and many other resources for people with developmental disabilities and families, for example, related to promoting independence and self-determination, helping people to access information about finding jobs or just to find out information about things that they might then want to talk to people about or think about a goal related to that element of their life. And we know at the minute, we haven't set the full curriculum, but it's likely to be, obviously there's going to have to be a little bit of training and information on how to use the system, but then it will follow a process of information about the rights of people with disabilities, the values of services, particularly obviously community living, community-based services, information about different service types, and then training around person-centered approaches, thinking, planning, assisting, communicating, and much more in that element. Obviously, we will be thinking about how to do some other things in conjunction with those person-centered approaches, like informed choice and supporting decision-making. And then at the other levels, practice leadership, implementing for success, observing and assessing quality, and we say training for trainers and coaches. Okay, now finally, in terms of the next bits of the project, in the main implementation phase, which is likely to start midway through 2025, we hope to work with 300 to 400 individuals across 4 regional centres. And we need to make sure we're including people from all sorts of different diverse backgrounds with diverse needs so that we can really make sure that the system works. And there'll be a number of ways that we will recruit people to participate. And of course, as we start to get to that process, you will start to hear much more about that and get people have the opportunity potentially to participate. Now, as I mentioned, the Pave system was always intended to include a training element that would support person-centered practice, quality of life outcomes, and develop and recognize DSP practice-based competency. And And that leads us to the link into the Direct Support Professional University. Pave existed before the Workforce Initiative from the Department of Developmental Services, but there's a lot of overlap in some of the ideas that we had already thought about. And some of you will be already familiar with this, but in terms of the system, or the proposal is that there would be a 3-tiered system of DSP training, a level 1, 2, and 3, with different pay levels associated with those different financial incentives, basically. Certification would be provided through the Department of Developmental Services, and initially it would be primarily an e-learning based approach via a learning management system. So staff would log on. Some of you probably have recently had done the training for the DSP stipend. John Raphael put up the 3 modules. And so, that was through a learning management system. And so you logged on and you did that, you watched some videos, etc. And so this would be a similar type of approach, although obviously a little bit more expansive and extensive, because it would be worth more. And I'll say a little bit more about that at our session where we're going to focus on the DSP University later on today. You can find out more about the element as a workforce initiative on the department's website. And I haven't been able to do it just yet, but I will put a copy of these slides onto the app so that you can access them if they're helpful to get to those links. So when we put in our proposal to be the organization that would support DDS to develop the curriculum for the DSP University, these were our 2 kind of key aims, the aims of our proposal, or what we thought that we should be aiming to do. And the first one was that we wanted to be able to provide training that focused on improving and maintaining the quality and consistency of support received by individuals with developmental disabilities across California, and thus improve the outcomes they experienced. For CCLN, and particularly in combination with the Pave project, if the training didn't focus on improving outcomes, then we were missing the opportunity to make change in the system and to help staff to have all of the skills that they need. And of course, the other element is to provide DSPs across California with career development opportunities and a system of wages commensurate with the skills that are required. And so that kind of is the second main aim. The objectives are to provide training that is person-centered, based in person-centered practice, is culturally and linguistically sensitive. Okay, that was really important to DDS, to the department, was that we really take into account that training is culturally and linguistically sensitive. It has to be available in several different languages. It has to be available with ASL signing. It has to have a range of, it has to be, the language used, the terminology used, has to be understood in different cultures. Because it's not just a translation issue, is it? In different languages and in different cultures, words can just mean different things. Concepts can be different. How people experience things can be different. So sometimes we have to be able to think that through in our training as well. It's training that is consistent across, for example, regional centers and across organizations where we're talking about that really basic kind of knowledge that people need to have. Of course, it also has to be, and I'm skipping down to, adaptable and tailored, because if you're working in one type of service, you might need some specific skills that you don't need in another type. So for example, if you're working in supported employment services, you might need some different knowledge and some different skills than if you are working in a supported living service. So it has to somehow be able to go across service types. Yeah, it needs to be, and the department were very clear that the curriculum needs to be research, evidence-based, and it needs to be accessible to DSPs at a whole range of different levels. Sarah and Margaret, I guess we're not doing our Pave weekly check-ins today. We can cancel that. And for us, it was really important that whatever we did, if we got the job, it had to be able to be linked to the Pave service outcomes system, and we needed to be able to map it to core competencies that existed, both those provided by the DDS and also the NADSP ones that John talked about yesterday. We're proposing a certification system, further learning and career development opportunities, and really importantly, a robust evaluation of the impact, including the experiences of people receiving services. One of the things that we really wanted to do, and there will be some challenges to doing this, but when we proposed, we thought it was really important that whatever we provided created efficiencies in the system. Yeah, that it would reduce the need for everybody, all service providers across it, to be doing their own thing every time, every person, that actually there was something that people could do to get the knowledge that they needed. And then service providers ideally should be focusing on helping staff to think about how do they apply that training in the setting and with the people that they're working with. In that sense. So that was one of the things that we were very keen to do. So I've hinted already at some of the elements of the intersection between the two. And the Pave modules that I talked about earlier would contribute most of the person-centered practice modules and some of the other elements of the modules for DSPU. So there could be synergy and efficiency in that way. Of course, Pave goes broader than frontline direct support professionals to thinking about training at all sorts of different levels. And Pave offers an opportunity, because there will be resources and support to look at and to provide that motivational structure to actually see what's happening in services. Pave provides an opportunity for a system that helps to close the gap on training. When we talk to providers and when we talk to DSPs, they often say that they went on training, but then they just came back to their service, and that was it. They were supposed to do something with that training, and they didn't always know what to do and how to apply it. And so what we hope that Pave will do is give services some of the elements that they need to really close that loop on training. So it's not just people going off and doing training, and that's it. It somehow disappears into the ether. Yeah. And so together they offer efficiency and consistency. It also allows, for example, if we're collecting data as part of Pave, it allows elements of knowing about workforce development and what people do to be part of the quality incentive program, which is closely connected with the Pave project. It offers a framework for assessing practice competency, not just knowledge, but skills that John talked about yesterday. And DSPU, on the other hand, provides the possibility for some of Pave training modules to become more widely available sooner. So we get to use those and test them and think about how we can do that better. Okay. And finally, together, we think that they support the sustainability of both over time. And as we'll talk a little bit more about this afternoon when we talk about DSPU, it allows the data collected through the Pave service outcome system could potentially allow demonstration of the impact of DSP University over time on people receiving services, on DSPs, on families, and on the system overall. And CCLN through Pave and in collaboration with others such as Taft College can offer opportunities for a more developed career pathway, not just DSP 1, 2 and 3, but what could you do after that? What could you specialize in? What could you continue to learn about that would then mean that you could potentially be a supervisor if you wanted to, or move up in the levels within your organization? And it also provides the opportunity not just for e-learning, but for instructor-led sessions and even potentially more project-based, or rather than simply little questionnaires or quizzes, really very much more meaningful ways for you to show your knowledge and to be able to have your skills recognized, not just whether you pass a test or know the answers to certain questions. And so that allows us to do that. So I'm going to invite up this afternoon, as I mentioned, we have another session where we'll talk a little bit more and ask for some feedback and some ideas from those who come to us about the DSP University. And I will be joined by other members of the team from CCLN and our wider collaborative, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But I'd like to invite up our panel members. Now, I don't know if we've room for everybody, but maybe we could start with Amy and Todd and Karen and Jackie. If people would like to, if they would like to come up, and we're going to we've got a couple of questions that I'm going to ask. Thank you for coming. And I would like to start with Amy and Todd and ask them about how important is it to you that the staff who support you have the right training, and what do you think they need to know or understand in order to support you well?
Yes, it's really important information about not them having the wrong process, wanting to do things better.
Okay.
She's asking, why do you think it's important for the staff to support you well? What do you think it's important for them, for the staff to know? Okay. I need to ask them, and they need to be learning. So I could feel better with my staff. Are you a little bit shy?
He's a little bit shy.
I'm a little nervous. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I don't know what to say.
Thank you. Okay. Amy.
What do you think is important for the staff that they need to know? She really teaches me the right way of, or the wrong way of things. So it's important. So what do you think staff need to know when they're working with you? What's important? What do they need to know? Like, what training should we know to work with you? She helps me so much. It's so much at the house, and yeah, she just helps me so much at home. Like going out to the community, and now I have. Okay, yes. Now my first time, I have tech in my house now. I know this. Everything's we're learning with all these new things with the technology in the house. They need to know what these are for and what they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, hey, good job. Yeah, I'm proud of you. It's also, yeah, that technology thing. It's learning about these different things, not knowing how that accidentally, like, we had an emergency button and they accidentally called 911, and so. Do you think it's important about, the staff to know about your bus or the medication, like doctor's appointments? What do you think about that? Yeah, the bus, getting on the bus. There's many different things going around. Like if I wanted to go out to, like on like a plane to like Washington or something, or Alaska. Yeah, I love traveling.
Okay.
Like go to Disneyland.
Excellent.
I want to go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. What I'm hearing there is something that we need to be thinking about carefully in training, and thinking about training will be DSP's understanding how to use technology that you might be using. That the people who support you will also need to understand about different types of assistive or other types of technology. Yeah? Okay. Excellent. Thank
Yes.
you. Karen?
Good morning.
Good morning. Could you say a little bit about what you think direct support professionals need to help them to provide people with support to have good lives?
More training. We do quality observations every month. We need to keep doing that because we're training new staff like 2 days, and then we follow up in 2 weeks, and that's it. We need to continue to have more training out there. We have a circle of support every 3 months, and that needs to keep going. We need the training needs to be every month. The work doesn't stop.
So ongoing training and support to learn and to review knowledge. Okay.
Yes, because the employer, I don't call them clients, their employer, because I work for her. Their lives, it's always changing. Appointments are changing, medicine's changing, everything, it's never going to be the same thing. You have to be trained daily to understand, to work with them.
Okay. All right. Jackie, thank you, Amy. I probably don't need to ask you a question, do I?
You can.
You can just tell us what
I'm
you
not going to talk close to the mic because I'm afraid of Pat.
But from a provider's perspective, what do you think are the opportunities related to kind of thinking about a system for training DSPs that is consistent, and that would there be advantages for providers in that perspective?
Well, I think that we are focused so much on saying you're a direct support professional and wanting, I think that one of the things that John had said yesterday about teachers are certified, and hopefully your pilot is certified and your doctor has a license. I think in our system, our workforce continues to be invisible, and we need to elevate them as direct support professionals, and through a process of training and showing the system at large. It's not just you show up and you're like, oh yeah, it's nice to meet Todd, and hey Todd, what's going on? We need a system to make sure we are teaching and training and elevating the workforce to be direct support professionals. So I think it's critically important going forward, and that's why I'm excited about Pave, is that we're going to develop this process, and then we can have a proof to others that yes, this is a professional workforce, and with that comes wages, respect, and dignity for the workforce. So I just think it's really critically important that we create some type of process that we can share with the entire, because the problem is you could go to any provider and the way we train staff is very different. There are going to be always individualized pieces of what we do, but I do think that going forward, if we're to elevate our workforce, we need to have this system.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Todd? See.
Yeah, I have a daughter and 3 grandkids. And I enjoy visiting them and keeping in touch with them on Facebook, with my phone, just different things. I really do enjoy it. And having, learning to take care of a child it's different. You can do it. Employers can do it. They can do it.
Excellent. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. I had just one more question. Oh, sorry, Todd. Yeah.
Yeah, I've known him since he was 3 years old, right?
Oh, excellent. So I just Karen mentioned the qualitative observation. Yeah? And I think many people in the room won't know what that means, what it refers to in the way that STEP have done it. Could you say just a little bit more about what you mean when you say a qualitative observation?
I meet with her weekend staff just once a month, and that we'll continue working with her, and we just do an observation how they communicate, how they work together, any other issues that might be coming up, and seeing if the staff is consistent with training, that they're listening to her and following what she wants to do and supporting her.
Okay.
If we go around and we see something that maybe they've forgotten, or we have to try and train them again, and so that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Meaning it doesn't always have to be at our house. It can be out in the community. Maybe we're doing food shopping. It can just be anywhere where that training happens.
And this is something that supervisors do, isn't it? This is something that is part of your practice leadership role. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's in my role. Yeah, I'm supervisor. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is one of the types of ways that we need to think about, and the skills that we need to give supervisors to be able to do those observations and provide that feedback on an ongoing basis to individuals that allows them to put the training that they receive into practice and to keep afresh, but in the real situation with the people they're supporting, not just going on another workshop or on another training course online. Okay. Thank you so much to my wonderful friends at STEP, Strategies to Empower People. Oh, one more thing. Okay, Todd.
I used to work at McDonald's for 10 years, and now I'm retired.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Had a job coach.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much to our second group of panelists who are going to reflect a little bit on the importance and of particularly of the DSP University and the link to outcomes and what that means at different levels. And John, perhaps you would start at the, if you like, from providers, we're going to the regional centre level to think about it from that perspective.
So everyone can hear me in the back? Yes, you can. Good morning, John Decker, the Director of Community Services at Alta California Regional Center. I just want to touch just generally why I'm very excited about the work that you guys are doing here for the three things. One is that you're going to hear more about the workforce initiatives that DDS is putting forth. Our regional center really has heard from our service providers about the need for professionalizing the DSP workforce and providing more opportunities for increased wages. And so I really appreciate that this folds into that very well. And with that too, talking about the standardization that's going on right now when we talk about, supported living services, independent living services, getting people on the same page about what we are discussing statewide, what opportunities are available out there. So these are the aspects of Pave that I think are fantastic, and how it's going to be able to meld together with the DSP University to give an opportunity to have like statewide implementation support from the statewide agency, the Department of Developmental Services, really helps the regional centers be able to get that local implementation amongst all of our service providers. So we live and die with the quality of the direct support professionals that we have, and we've seen the professionalization of it not kind of get to where it needs to be. And so I think this is a great next step for all of it. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Vicki, from the perspective of the state level at DDS, can you say a little bit about what your hopes are and what you are feeling effectively at this point where we're about to kick off, if you like, on DSP University?
Yeah, sure.
From that. Thank
Well,
you.
first of all, Vicki Smith with the Department of Developmental Services, and shout out to my colleague Jim Knight, who's just an amazing man, let alone a leader, and to Will and folks that received the award. I think the thing that the DSP University really represents for the department is the recognition, first of all, of the profession that already exists as direct service professionals and direct support professionals. But it also brings a career pathway in place to build upon based on the desire of someone to be able to stay in the industry. There's a lot of initiatives with the department. I'll be talking about them a little bit later in the conference. But they provide an overall holistic perspective on getting folks in through the door, so recruiting and then training and then retaining the direct service professional arena. We start with the outcomes in mind because we're very honored, actually, to be working on this project. It's extremely innovative. We hope that it lands with that pay differential that folks are expecting, and the feeling of more confidence in the skills that you have and the recognition that you will receive by the credentialing process through that DSP University. But all of that really, to us, is secondary to the outcome that we're looking for folks to get, and that is that the individuals that we serve will have more meaningful and better supports in their lives, and their lives will be more meaningful by the services and supports that you provide to them to be able to really seek after their goals and their hopes and dreams. So we are really looking at it from an outcomes-based perspective, but we're really excited to do it. It's a rather large project. We're extremely excited that Cal State Sacramento is building our learning management system that you will be going on to be able to take the courses, and then designing it where you can take it at any time that you want to take it. It's a 24-hour deal. And then we just finalized our contract with CCLN to actually do the development specific to the DSP University. So we're really proud of the partnerships that are forming to be able to do this and to enhance really the workforce.
Thank you. And I'm going to... things at the federal level, and we've got a couple of slides, and if you just want to shout, I can move them when you're ready.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I'm going to echo Vicki and a shout out to Will, much deserved. Congratulations. And Jim Knight, you just are a tireless public servant, I would say. Many of you, I'm from the East Coast, and I frequently get messages from Jim, hey, how about if we meet at 9:30, 10 o'clock my time, which means he's up at 6:30 and 7 o'clock, and that same day we'll be in meetings that are maybe 8 o'clock my time and 5 o'clock Jim's time. That's not an uncommon thing. So congratulations, Jim. It's really well deserved. So maybe so much not the federal level, but and you can just go ahead and but the national level. This is something that many of you and several people have already said, there isn't just one factor, but there are many factors that where we're really talking about the professionalization. And, you know, so many direct support professionals that we've met over the years, they are professionals. It's just making sure that the rest of the world kind of knows it and sees it in a way that the world typically kind of measures what professionalism means. Someone mentioned licensure and, you know, whether or not someone is certified. So there are a lot of things taking place in many different states, some at very local levels, even just at the county and regional center levels in other states. These slides will be available to you. There's a lot of words on them, and I apologize for that. But I also have a link on every slide, so if you hear me talk about something and you're like, oh, I really want to know a little more about that, you can see the little blue MOTAP info. Like I have a little thing that says info on each slide that you can click on. And I do apologize, I'm going to talk really fast because your butts must be hurting at this point. So Missouri has done some really incredible stuff with what they're partnering their DD program with their Department of Labor and creating what they're calling Missouri Talent Pathways. And it's formal registered apprenticeships that are paid. So it's kind of like journeyman electricians, if you think of it along those lines, or plumbers that have to go through the journeyman process to become licensed. And it's really incredible. What I have on the bottom of this slide there for you to see is the results that they're already seeing in just 2 years. They've actually seen a $6,000 average increase in the wages for people that have gone through the program. They have 26%, so there's 32 providers that have participated in testing it out for the first year, and they've seen a 26% higher retention rate, staff staying on board. And then, and this is just a projection, it's used, and my colleague Renata can really talk more about how we project the cost of retaining every single person that we keep in the field. But using those formulas, it's approximately $1 million in increases. So Missouri, definitely something to take a look at. On the next slide, I think we talk about New York. So is anybody familiar with the National Association of Direct Support Professionals, NADSP, they're called? So highly... John was here yesterday speaking. Oh, terrific. So John Raphael is the assistant. It's run by a guy named Joe Macbeth. So they have a really incredible credentialing program that they've been rolling out. They call it the eBadge Academy. New York has undertaken it in a very big way, and full disclosure, I'm part of a team that's helping to evaluate the project. And that's the piece I wanted to point out. New York State has engaged, again, my colleagues at the University of Minnesota there's lots of theory about, well, gee, if we just do more training, do we just create these certifications, then that's going to improve things for people we support, for the direct support workers themselves, for agencies. It's going to make it better for everybody. But right now, we don't have any evidence that really demonstrates that there is a direct link. So New York State, really one of the first states to step out ahead and say, let's evaluate this. Let's make sure that we're doing it well. So they're paying bonuses for DSP 1, 2, and 3. Did John talk about that? But they have 3 different ways that it can happen. One is your provider agency can provide the training and support the training and the certification enrolling in the eBadge Academy, or you as a direct support worker can decide that you would like to go to the local community colleges, and they have a whole system of them in New York, like you do here in California. You can go that route and actually take courses, which then can also lead to, they call them, they have one pathway that leads towards an associate degree, and one that you can actually go on and get a bachelor's degree. So they call it micro-credentialing. And then the third is that they're similar to CCLN, their provider agency network, their representative organizations are providing technical assistance on retention methodology, things that providers can do. So they're testing all three of these to see which one results in some increased professionalization, and they believe that that will result in increased retention, which then increases the relationship between people supported and their direct care workers. So just two more real quick. Vicky's already talked about California. I couldn't come to California and not talk about the amazing stuff that you guys are doing. Vicki mentioned one of them, but there are so many things that you have rolled out at once. It's really, I don't know any state that has done this much all at once at this period of time, including the technology piece. So again, there's a link there that if you're not aware of all of the other things that are going on. And then the last, Georgia, so this is a very interesting piece. Georgia is also using the eBadge Academy. They're looking at certifications for DSP 1, 2, and 3. And I hope that John also mentioned, Julie mentioned a few minutes ago, the supervisor's role. There is an FLS one, so Frontline Supervisor Certification Project, certification program through NADSP as well, which is really how do I support the supporters and how do I make sure that I am helping people understand, much like our self-advocates, and Karen mentioned in the first panel, that crucial piece about how feedback is given to direct support workers by their staff, by their supervisor, to make sure they really understand that link to outcomes. Georgia has created a professional advocacy council for DSPs, which is, you can see all of the bullets on here, but it's literally helping DSPs to learn how to be confident in speaking publicly, in joining boards and councils, having a voice on all of the advisory boards, the boards of directors of agencies, making sure that they have a chance to advocate at the Capitol. They just had, at the statewide level in Georgia, for the first time, they've had a DSP, a direct support worker, appointed to the statewide advisory council for the DD system. And so they've created this council to increase their knowledge, help them understand the complexities of the whole system, and be able to really speak to the importance of how that support needs to be made available.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So we've got like 2 minutes left in that, I'm afraid, because we need to bring the room into parts. Yeah. But could you bring us back to that point of evaluation and the research element to make us think, and we'll be talking a little bit more this afternoon about that element. So
yes, just a couple sentences. I'm Renata Ticham from the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. It's a great honor to be working with CCLN, with Pave, and DSPU. And our role in the projects is we are the evaluators. And so we really pay attention with our history at ICI of course, housing and developing the direct course, and also the course for frontline supervisors, and also having various research projects and centers on evaluating outcomes for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I'll end there. I know everybody's probably really tired by now, but thank you, Julie.
Okay, thank you all very much. Perhaps everybody would give a round of applause to our panels, all of everybody. Thank you. Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you all so much. We've been so excited to have so many folks from DDS and from regional centers here, as well as all of you.